Hello everyone, Alistair Gold here. I wasn't actually going to do another video this week. I just kind of was sitting here, it's pouring outside, and I was actually reminded that it's exactly a year today that I reported and others reported that Tottenham's talks to appoint a certain head coach called Antonio Conte had broken down. A year ago. Can you believe that that's exactly a year ago today? Feels like a lifetime ago. But here we are now in a very, very different circumstances and a very different Tottenham Hotspur. And despite the rain outside, it's not too much of a miserable time. Although I must start, actually, before I get into anything else, just saying thank goodness Emerson Royal is okay. If you haven't heard, horrific incident in Brazil. He's back in his homeland. He'd been having like a family party at a nightclub. I think it was family and friends. And when he came out, reportedly posed for a photo with a fan who happened to be an off-duty police officer, and it sounds like during that someone tried to essentially perform an armed robbery on him to take some of his stuff off of him, and the off-duty policeman started firing back, and reportedly, according to local media, 29 bullets shot. Thankfully, and I have to say fingers crossed because we know he's okay, as he's come out on his Instagram and said since, but Emerson emerged unscathed, but horrible. But thankfully okay, and I think he's even posted a photo of the chap that he says saved his life. So yeah, before we get into anything that is clearly not as serious as that, just wanted to quickly say that thank goodness that Emerson Royal is okay, because scary stuff. But in terms of Tottenham, it's obviously we're slap bang in the international break right now, which is a weird one. It's a weird, they're always a bit like meh, international breaks, but I think coming straight after the season when everything's like, come on in, let's get going with transfers and everything, it puts this weird pause on a lot of transfers because, a lot of anything to do with those players is not really going to progress on their part. It can with representatives and between clubs, but in terms of the actual players, they're not really going to make decisions based on like an important step in their future while on international duty. But it is what it is. But it still gives us plenty to talk about. Got absolutely loads to talk about. Little bits and pieces have kind of been hearing in recent days as well since the last video. So I felt it was right to just sneak in, especially with the rubbish weather out there, sneak in another little video as well, just to chat about stuff. We're going to work our way through some of the positions in the team and obviously what needs to be done and certain players that we know Spurs are looking at. Let's start with defence because obviously, it was last year, wasn't it? Even that feels so long ago. Last year it was always Romero news. I was getting constantly. Now it is Bastoni news. Interesting little slight development with that one. Look, in essence, we're still in that same scenario in terms of Spurs don't really foresee any issue with the fee or the wages, anything like that. The issue obviously comes with the player not being particularly, desperate to move away from Inter Milan. As I explained this before, he's only just turned 23, I think, last month. He's, Italian. Of course, he is through and through. He's at he's very settled at the club he's at. Ultimately, if he moves, as I've said in the past, it's going to be really because Inter need the money and they're going to say to him, look, we kind of need you to do us a favour here because we want to sign this player, that player. Bremer is one of them. We know Lukaku, they're quite interested in trying to bring back as well. So to do that, you need a fair bit of money. So there may be this point where if Spurs, say, bang, there's the offer, there's a big money offer, Inter Milan say, actually, you know what? And then they go to Bastoni as his agent and they say, look, lads, I think we're going to have to take this. And it would really kind of benefit the club, we feel, if you move on. I think that's the way, if this transfer is going to happen, it is going to happen. And interestingly, and that's kind of what I've been saying in the last week or two, but what's quite interesting is that his agent has come out, spoke to, where is it? I got it here, Sport Italia, his agent, Tullio Tinti, which is a fantastic name. He is certain, this is about his client, Alessandro Bastoni. He's certainly a big fan of the team he plays for, so he will happily remain at Inter. However, he is also a professional. This is football and he has to adjust. It's clear he is very happy to play for Inter and feels this jersey like a tattoo on his skin. So what this feels like to me, just in my opinion, this feels like different people manoeuvring themselves into positions of not being the bad guy, which is completely understandable. And to be fair, it doesn't sound like Bastoni, everything we're hearing, doesn't sound like Bastoni is desperate to leave. He's very young, as I say, and this would be his first big move abroad. And it's a very different league, and it's understandable that, if you're quite comfortable where you are, that's fair enough. But I do feel like his agent now is kind of saying, look, he loves the club, but if he ends up he has to go, he has to go. And that's side of fans, because the fans don't want to lose Bastoni whatsoever. And I think Inter, if they are to sell him, would probably go down a similar route of, sorry guys, we need the money. We know that they've been having financial issues. That is one of the reasons why Conte left last summer, and it's obviously Tottenham's gain now, and it'd be interesting to see whether they end up gaining from it again with Bastoni, and obviously Perisic as well, technically to a different kind of degree. So yeah, I think this Bastoni one will rumble on a little bit longer. He is still on international duty. I think he made a goal line clearance in the Finalissimo from Giovanni Lo Celso the other day at Wembley. So yeah, he's not going to make any decisions based on his future until he's done with that, which is going to be mid-June. So it's going to rumble on, and like I've said before, we're going to see it go each way. We're going to see the door close. We're going to see the door opened again. We're going to hear every different side of this. Look, he is one of Spurs' 2 top targets for that centre-back, left centre-back role. And so if they feel that they can get him, and that just requires a couple of weeks of patience, as long as he's there for pre-season, or at some point in pre-season, maybe, to go on the tour to Korea, that's kind of the key thing. But I'd even say he's that important a signing to them. If it rumbles on longer than that, it rumbles on longer than that. That's what you do. I know we're all now, because we've had Perisic in, and everyone's like, let's get them all in really early. But ultimately, if there are some that are so important that you have to wait a little while, I think we'll all just have to chill a little bit and just accept that it's going to take that little bit longer. But we'll see with Bastoni. Honestly, he would be class. He would be. As I said before, the fee's going to be over 51 million at least. I think that's basic, not including add-ons as well. So, it's a big money move, and he is a player that fee reflects, because he is, the potential to be absolutely world class. And that is why Spurs are not just pulling away from this deal because they've had a little bit of a roadblock with him initially not really wanting to move on. It's the same. I know it's very different. We've just spoken about Emerson Royal. Emerson Royal did not want to leave Barcelona last year. No, very different player, different type, everything. But he did not want to leave whatsoever. But Barcelona's financial issues, and we're going to talk about them in a little bit as well, they meant that they just had to let him go. And that could end up being something that happens with Inter. We'll kind of see what happens with their financial situation and who else particularly they're looking to get rid of or need to get off the books, and how it all works. So I say there's 2 main centre-backs. I mentioned this before, I think maybe in the last video. Josko Gvardiol is the other one. RB Leipzig, 20-year-old left-sided centre-back. He is another one who's absolutely top class. When I say, I think the fact that they're 2 top targets also signifies that they are difficult players to sign. You're top, and we're talking about top of a wish list kind of players. And with Gvardiol, I think he's going to be more expensive. There's talk of around 80 million euros for him. Man City and Chelsea both want him as well. And again, from what I understand, very happy in RB Leipzig. I think the key difference with him and Bastoni, and this is where maybe Spurs are thinking, hello, is that Bastoni only has 2 years left in his contract. So from Inter's point of view, it's probably the peak time they're going to get in terms of, peak fee they're going to get for him, unless they tie him down to a new deal, which you'd think financially, is that the right thing they want to do this summer? We'll see. But with Gvardiol, he is, I think it's till 2026, his contract. It's a long contract. So he could quite feasibly stay another year in Leipzig, and then next year they sell him for huge money to, whoever kind of bids in a bidding war for him. So, yeah, with Gvardiol, Croatian international, it's a little bit different. But yeah, so they're the top 2. But then there is a wish list, in terms of order. And what we've also got to understand is we know the way Paratici works by now. He'll negotiate for up to 10 players in every position that you want someone in. And then if they get close, then he can close the deal quite quickly and efficiently. So that's why you're going to see so many names. You are. And also, like I say, well, I'm about to give you a load of names because I know they're on Spurs' wish list for that centre-back role. So you've got, and I think this is roughly the order as well. So after those two, after Bastoni and Gvardiol, which pretty much, there's some talk that Gvardiol was actually the top. I'd say they're probably on a level par, both absolutely top-class players. And obviously with Bastoni, you've got the year of working with Conte and making him a Italy international regular and also a regular in the Inter team as well, having been away on loan before that. But yeah, after that, got Pau Torres of Villarreal. He is obviously a very, very good defender as well. I think Man United very keen on him. So if he does move, and he's also indicated that he wouldn't mind staying or signing it. Apparently there's a contract offer from Villarreal on the table for him. I do wonder whether United wanted him. It'd be interesting to see which way that goes. And if Spurs have to turn away from Bastoni, it'd be interesting to see whether they enter that race as well. But definitely high up there on Spurs' list as well. Then you've got Mark Guéhi. I'm actually killing the pronunciation of his name. The Crystal Palace in England defender. I like him as well. He's, I think the difference there is that he's a right footer. And obviously former Chelsea guy, wasn't he? He left it. Was it only been a season at Palace as well? So you'd imagine there's quite big money there. I think he's got a deal till 2026. He's only 21. The reason Spurs like him is he's a bit of a leader as well. Good character. I think he was captain for Palace for Vieira's side for a fair few times in the second half of the season. Like I say, 21 years old. That's quite impressive. So yeah, in terms of homegrown numbers as well, that's another tick for that box. But I would say, price-wise, I think he's going to be right up there as well. But then, it's a question of value, isn't it? Is he going to be more than the 51 plus million they want to spend on Bastoni? Maybe not. But also, it's different. I suppose it's your levels, isn't it? I guess your top of your wish list players, you probably are willing to pay that money for. If you start to work down that list slightly, and let's be honest, everyone on this list is a very good defender. But I wonder whether price-wise you do think to yourself, well, I'm not going to pay that for that person and stuff like that. You know what I mean? I suppose it's like buying a house, isn't it, in a way? So next on the list, Gleison Bremer from Torino. And the reason he's interesting is he's the player that Inter Milan are looking to sign right now. About 21 million. Brazilian player, obviously. 25 years old. He's a right footer as well. So again, whether they can play on the left is one thing, or whether this is just someone else for a slightly different role. Maybe the Romero backup if Sanchez were to go, or the Dyer backup perhaps. But yeah, it's all very interesting with Bremer, the whole Inter Milan thing, all the brinkmanship involved in this as well. And the other interesting thing with Bremer is he's represented by CAA Base. If you're not aware of who they are, they're the agency that have got really close ties with Spurs. A lot of their clients have played for Spurs. You've got Sonny right now. He's a base client. Dele, Kyle Walker-Peters, Kyle Walker, Kieran Trippier. There's a very close connection between Spurs and base. And yeah, that's an interesting one. That gives them an in there. So yeah, I do wonder whether that interest is used in any way when trying to leverage into letting Bastoni go. So there's him, and then there's one and he is on this list who caused a little bit of people complaining this week, and that is, I'm going to hopefully not murder the pronunciation of this, Clement Lenglet. It's spelled Lenglet, but I'm guessing in French that's Lenglet. So he turns 27 this month. Obviously a bit older than the other players there. I understand Spurs tried to sign him on loan last summer, and that was turned down by the player. The player didn't want to leave Barcelona at that point. He's played, I think I wrote this down, 27 times for Barcelona last season. Started 4 games in the Champions League. There's talk because of their financial problems that he'll be available on a loan deal. Potentially a 2-year loan deal has been spoken about. Again, he's back to it. He's a left footer. So he would be the Ben Davies competition, as it were. Like I say, further down that list, I'd imagine they turn to him if they can't get Bastoni or anyone above. He is definitely a cheaper alternative. People absolutely saying he's the worst defender in the world ever. You'd think. I think there's an element of he's not Bastoni, and I think that's what comes into play when people talk about this sort of stuff. He's a good player. He's a France international as well, and he, from what I understand, he's not the quickest, but he's got a very kind of cultured left foot, as it were. He'll be very, very good in playing the ball out under pressure and things like that. And he's playing at Barcelona at a time when Barcelona are in a difficult period in their history, let's put it that way. So I think it's tough to probably judge him too much on that, but he's got real experience as well. And I think they see him as quite a good character as well. So, like I say, if they're going for him, it perhaps suggests that other stuff isn't coming off. But, in that list, there's some very, very good defenders. I've had a few people asking about Kim Min-jae, because obviously linked perennially in the past, he has become a little bit like Spurs' defensive equivalent of Leandro Damião. Damião, do you remember him? The Brazilian striker. With Kim Min-jae, I understand there is some interest still there from Spurs, but I don't believe he's kind of up there on that list. Like I say, it's a player that they've been tracking, they're keeping an eye on. How old is he now? He's 25 now. Even that shows how far time's gone. I'm sure I was right about it when he was 22, 23. Obviously, he's been at Fenerbahce and played 40 times for last season. Had a good season, from what I understand. But yeah, I think Spurs and Everton were linked with him. I'd say that if Spurs were to move for him later in the window, again, it's because other stuff hasn't worked out, or the deal was just so good they thought as an extra backup, why not? But yeah, I don't think he's as high up on the list as maybe some people would hope. But definitely one there's a little bit of interest in still. So yeah, there's plenty of kind of options there, and that is only some of the names. That's the names that I'm aware of on the list. There may well be others that, of course, would be kept a little bit closer to their chest. Or the flip side is, this is the thing with transfer windows. I did an article on defenders the other day, and someone replied underneath, "Oh, I bet they signed someone not on that list." And it's like, well, yeah, they may well do, because it's not an exact science the way this works, because opportunities and different doors can open during this transfer window, any transfer window. A player that wasn't even in their thinking because he wasn't even available can suddenly become available within a matter of a day. It's just the way it works. So someone on the list that they just haven't even really bothered concentrating on, maybe someone at a big club that wasn't going anywhere, suddenly something can happen. There can be a fallout with a manager, a chairman. There can be a club, like we say, suddenly being in financial difficulties and needing to get rid. Spurs being in the Champions League can also tie in with that, suddenly being able to offer a player they hadn't previously looked at or had a realistic chance of. So yeah, it works like that. I do find that quite amusing when we're expected to be an exact science on an ever-moving thing. But hopefully, just try and do the best we can as journalists in a mad industry. So that's centre-backs. What else? I was going to talk about strikers because I noticed today that some of the Dybala news was coming out again. You may remember me saying, I think I wrote about it and spoke about it in a video about a month ago, that Spurs weren't going to go for Dybala. Obviously in the past, there's been interest, and he certainly was a player that tried to sign in that summer of 2019. But in terms of since then, no. And the key person, I think, in all of this is Fabio Paratici, because Paratici, I don't really believe, sees him as the best fit for what Conte is trying to do at Spurs. And I understand he was one of those trying to move Dybala on from Juventus at that time in 2019. So, yeah, I don't think it's ever really been a particularly viable option this summer. But, yeah, again, who knows? I'd imagine not. Everything I'm hearing is not. And I see there's also stories now coming out today which kind of confirms that again, that it's not the case. So, sorry to those who really are big Dybala fans. But yeah, if Paratici doesn't really believe he's the right fit for what they're trying to do, then yeah, it's very unlikely to happen. As I said before, I think the key thing with Spurs, whoever they get in for a striker, and they will sign an experienced striker, that's what they're trying to do. When I say experienced, it just means it could be a younger striker, but one that's played a lot of football at the top level. I think the key for them is deciding, are you going to sign a natural number 9 type who is a straight replacement for Kane, or can play alongside him, or are you going to pick someone that can also play out wide? And that's going to be the key really to their decision. I've said this before, but I'll repeat the names again. The names that I know are among those on their list for this. They like, again, when I say list, I want to make this clear, this is a wish list kind of thing. So they will work their way down in terms of availability and who is actually generally a realistic target. So like I'm about to say, Dominic Calvert-Lewin is on that list. He is a similar kind of mould, I guess, to that old-fashioned English-style hold-up man as well that they can bring onto the pitch. But obviously, in terms of realism, Calvert-Lewin coming to Spurs and maybe not playing too much football, it's probably not as realistic, but he is definitely on that list. Gabrielle Jesus, again, another one. Slightly different in that he can play out wide as well. Again, would he give up being sometimes seen as a fringe player at City, although I don't think he has been as much this season because of Aguero's departure? But would he come to Tottenham and maybe play a lesser role? I think this is going to always be the issue with Spurs and the striker thing. We all say, sign this wonderful player, sign this incredible striker. But ultimately, that striker will sit down and think, meh, really? You know, this reminds me of my neighbour Dave. My neighbour Dave, I started to pick up his mannerisms. He always does that. Really? And I'm just, he'll love that that's now seeping into my usage. But yeah, it's a difficult sell. I know that sounds ridiculous when you think Conte is a difficult sell, Champions League football is a difficult sell. But I think there's now this real thing about Kane that's become this almost like an aura where other players just think, it's Harry Kane's it. I've said it in the past, I know Poch told us once that Morata pretty much said exactly that. They had everything agreed, I think, pretty much to get him to sign, and Morata went, Harry Kane's it. And I think that is a thing. As much as we don't want it to be a thing, I think it is. So you've got Gabrielle Jesus. The others they're looking at is Victor Osimhen, Napoli. He's on their list as well. He's class. They've looked at him for a while since he was at Lille. They like Alexander Isak from Real Sociedad. Very, very good young Swedish striker. He's a big lad as well. So physically, you think we'd be fine. Darwin Núñez, had a brilliant season for Benfica. I think Liverpool, Man United are very much chasing him as well. I know certainly they did like Patrick Schick, but obviously Patrick Schick, if you weren't aware, signed a new contract about a week ago, big long-term contract till 2027. Lautaro Martinez, we know, is a player that Conte and Paratici both like as well. Obviously, he also signed a new long-term deal in the summer, so it'd be very difficult to get him away. And this is the issue, I think, with pretty much every striker I've just named, is that they're all wish list strikers, but it would be about convincing them that there's a place in the team regularly. Obviously, you can say to them, with Champions League, there's going to be a lot of football. Harry Kane is going to be able to play every game, especially if you can also convince them that there'll be times where they'll play alongside Harry Kane. But it is still a tough sell. Every one of those players pretty much is playing week in, week out, every minute almost of every game. And you're saying to them, well, would you like to kind of take maybe a third to a half of that away? Tempting. And that's the issue. So that's when you start to maybe look at other ideas. And that's why I think in the past we've had Llorente's, Vincent Janssen's, the Carlos Vinicius's, because ultimately players may be more willing to adapt to a backup development role and improve alongside these top players and under a top manager. It's a different kind of player. And then you're getting more of a raw player, or with Llorente's case, a very experienced, but, a player willing, it's slightly, I guess, winding down their career slightly. So, yeah, it's that interesting one. where you can kind of say, oh, there's a lack of ambition when you're trying to buy for that role. But also, those ambitious players might not be as keen on it. It's probably the most difficult role, I'd say, to fill in the team. I'd actually go as far to say that. So that's strikers. Let's see what comes up there. Central midfield, obviously, Harry Winks very likely to move on for first team regular football. First team, like he's playing reserve football. You know what I mean. We know Christian Erickson is a player of interest to Tottenham. Of course he is, to bring him back. And there's been discussions within Spurs about trying to make that happen. I think from the news that's coming out of Denmark, certainly sounds like he's going to take his time again, international break playing its part, and he's going to look at the offer that Brentford give him, and quite rightly so. There's a part of me that does feel, I completely understand the loyalty to Brentford because they were the ones that took a chance on him. So he'll look at that, and he wants to stay in London, so I think that helps Spurs as well. And obviously Spurs having Champions League football, having Conte, it's all a big pull. It really is, and I think that's with Spurs looking for that midfield role. They're looking for someone who's a bit more forward-thinking. You've already got Bentancur, Højbjerg and Skip who are likely to be there. You've got Pape Matar who comes back. Someone pretty much every week in the comments of my videos, you haven't mentioned Pape Matar. I think I mention him every single week. Pape Matar, I will repeat again, had a really interesting, tough, but very good developmentally loan back at Metz. They got relegated, but he did very well over the course of the season. He appeared, I think, in almost every game he was available for. Started about 2/3 of them, and in the final weeks of the season, really played a part in almost keeping them up. They just unfortunately last day had to pay PSG away, and you can imagine what happened. Pape Matar, I'd say Conte will have a good old look at him in pre-season, but I do wonder whether, because he's only 19, whether he ends up getting a loan somewhere. I'm sure they'd love him to have a Premier League club, but it may end up potentially maybe you go somewhere like a German team, a bit like they did with Cess, send him to like a Bundesliga team where he's going to get regular football in a league that is similar-ish in pace and physicality to the Premier League. So yeah, I have spoken about Pape Matar. So what they're looking for is a more attack-minded, forward-thinking player. So Erickson, I think Yuri Tielemans will always be someone that Tottenham keep an eye on. He has been since he was young. Be interested to see what happens with him and Leicester this summer. But I know Arsenal always have been looking at him as well. But I do wonder with Spurs of Champions League to offer that. Who knows? Keep an eye exactly what happens there in that position. I think there will be others as well. I spoke about James Ward-Prowse, I think, didn't I, last week. Certainly, Spurs about 3 years ago almost had a deal done for him, but didn't pull the trigger. Now he's worth about 4 times the cost. Homegrown, yes. Maybe one to keep an eye on, but just maybe one to keep an eye on. It's probably the best way to put it. But I don't know value-wise. I think he's probably at his peak value right now, isn't he? And I don't know whether Spurs go for him right now in that, but who knows? Who knows? What else we got? Obviously, we've spoken about wing-backs, spoken about Djed Spence, haven't we? In the last week, I think. Situation with him pretty much remains the same. Away on England under-21 duty till mid-June. You're going to hear that phrase a lot from me. Away on international duty until mid-June. So he's not going to make a decision anytime soon. However, Spurs are among the front runners, and he is interested in the Spurs among some of the others as well. You got Dortmund, Roma, Newcastle, Brentford again, and obviously Nottingham Forest, all interested in signing him next season. But I think he does tick a lot of boxes for Spurs. So yeah, definitely keep an eye on that one, because I think if Spurs can get that one done, I think they will try to push that one over the line, because you're not talking about too much from Middlesbrough. I think 15, 16 million seems to be the talk. I'm sure there'll be a few add-ons there as well. But yeah, I think Spurs will try to really push for that once he's back from England duty. Wingers, obviously Steven Bergwijn. We'll talk a little bit about him in an international roundup later, but he's going to want to move on for international football. He's getting that regular football, especially with the World Cup coming up, and I think that's a similar thing for Winks as well. But with Bergwijn, obviously we know that Ajax interest is there. I do wonder whether Ten Hag really liked him. Ten Hag's gone to Man U. I wonder whether Man U end up making some kind of cheeky bid for him or not. But I'd imagine Ajax is probably where he's going to end up. If they put up the money, I guess, because Spurs turned down, I think we were looking at 20 million plus in January, and I don't think that value will have gone down whatsoever. So, yeah, that will be big money. So, who do they look to bring in? I know a couple of Paratici favourites. I don't know what people's differing views are. I think, look, of course he loves Adama Traore, Paratici. He does. And I'd imagine, I think he's in his last year now. So I'd be stunned if he doesn't look at him again as an option. Of course, everyone knows my views on Adama Traore. Very dangerous player, but very dangerous perhaps without that end product. Obviously, his stats are very poor overall when you look at it. And he went to Barcelona. I think he had a good maybe the first couple of games. He kind of shocked everyone. So, oh, he's really fast and he's really strong. Look what he's doing. And he maybe scored or a couple of assists or something. And everyone went, look at you, gold, you know nothing. And it was like, yeah, and then he just reverted to type after that and didn't really do much for Barcelona for the rest of his loan. So, yeah, I'd imagine unless it's an absolute bargain of a deal, which it may well be, I'd hope they don't. I think Spurs can do better myself. Certainly don't sign him as a wing-back because I think that was not the greatest idea ever. Especially everyone I spoke to around Wolves who was like, defending? A wing-back? Traore? No. So, yeah, I'm sure they'll have a little look at that again. And the other one I know Paratici really likes is Allan Saint-Maximin from Newcastle, there's talk that there's a release clause there. No one seems to have been able to confirm that, but there is talk that there's one. And I'm told that Paratici is a big fan of his as well. Little bit similar in terms of Traore, in terms of end product, maybe not quite being there. How do I put it? I think the best way to describe both of them is really lots of talent and potential, but maybe what they produce in their end product not quite matching that. They both got this ability to do the unpredictable, to do things like, whoa, didn't expect that. And they've both got the ability to beat a man with ease, but it's maybe just at the end of the move, they just don't have that consistency. So maybe one to keep an eye on, Saint-Maximin, especially if there is a release clause and they feel they can get him for a cheap price. Look, do I think he's going to push out any of those front three of Son, Kane and Kulusevski? No. But do I think as a squad player? Of course. You're looking to bolster your squad, compete in all competitions, and maybe in a squad like Tottenham's, maybe he could flourish. But yeah, keep an eye on that one. Keep an eye on it. It's just kind of just little talk at the moment, but I do know that Paratici really likes him. And how old was he, did I say? I think he's 25, I think. He's not old by any means. Obviously can still improve. Interesting to see whether his character's the exact fit for Tottenham. I think he is a bit of a character. And be interesting to see kind of whether he fits that mould exactly for a Conte player. But, yeah, we'll see on that one. Of course, Fraser Forster's the other one. Fraser Forster, we know, is going to join the Spurs. Initially, there seemed to be the thinking was maybe it wouldn't be announced until July the 1st, but that's after his contract ends. But I think the current thinking is it may be quite a bit sooner than that, potentially in the next week or two. So, well, I've spoken about Fraser Forster before, so I don't need to kind of go into that again. What I find really interesting as well, as kind of looking into this week, is the pre-season that is coming for the Tottenham players. Oh, they don't know what's coming. Well, they should know what's coming. Those that have trained with Conte in the last 7 months will know what's coming. Oh my goodness, it's going to be like a pre-season they have never experienced before. Conte and his coaches, Constantino Carratti, Gianpiero Ventroni, Stefano Bruno, all his main three fitness coaches. Oh my goodness, they're going to run them into the ground. They really are. I watched a little bit of again the other day because I wanted to remind myself exactly what I said. If you want a nice little insight into what the top players think about Conte's pre-season, All or Nothing, the Amazon documentary, but on Juventus rather than Spurs. In the first episode, about 15 to 20 minutes in, it's about Andrea Pirlo's first season as a coach. He's working with the Juve players, and in pre-season, they all look a bit knackered and they're complaining. One of his coaches says to him as they're walking off the training pitches, they say, "Anyway, players are always complaining." And Pirlo says back, "Sure, I don't give a crap that they complain. If they saw what we did with Conte, they'd kill themselves. There were people on the ground." And it's like, that is Pirlo, one of the top players in the history of football, and he still shudders when he thinks about a Conte pre-season. It's all about, from what we understand, like kind of high intensity drills, extreme fitness work, but done in a concentrated amount of time. So it's really pushing them in this really short space of time until they feel like their lungs are going to burst. It's like almost testing their limits and everything. And they are going to be knackered. And if you think about it, he's been able to vastly improve their fitness around matches. So like Harry Kane has said that he's the fittest he's ever been in his career. And this is the thing as well. Poch was a tough taskmaster. His training sessions, his double sessions were gruelling. His pre-seasons were knackering. You've probably heard me say before, and Dybala told me once when I interviewed him that he actually thought about leaving Spurs just a few weeks after joining because of how hard Poch's pre-season training was. And Conte is meant to be a whole other level on top of that. Kane says he's the fittest he ever is. Joe Rodon, really interestingly, this week. Bearing in mind he's only played 10 matches for Spurs this season. He's been going away with Wales and being like one of the fittest players. And he said this week, when people ask him how, he said, "The gaffer at Tottenham, he works us all very hard. I can only thank the staff and him, of course, for what they've been like with me over the course of the season. They've kept us, even the ones who don't play, in a very good condition, and I think it's a credit to his team, and of course the boys have put in the work as well. It benefits us, of course, and the intensity we train at is very high, and I can only be thankful for the condition he's kept me in." I should also point out, because the Wales connections made me think about it, when I talk about the wingers, people obviously will talk about Gareth Bale. Gareth Bale having left or announced his farewell from Real Madrid. Look, I've spoken to various people on both sides of this. People in Bale's camp, people in Spurs camp, and they both say highly unlikely. And that's kind of everything I've just said. There's the reason why as well. It's the fitness side of things, the demands, the physical stresses on people's body that Conte puts on his players. And Bale, unfortunately, he only played, I think it was 7 times for Real Madrid last season, totaling about 200 minutes. Most of those were like little 3-4 minutes at the end of games. He suffered from back injuries, calf injuries, various other little injury problems, and he was out for a fair old whack of the season. And there's just this understanding that it just wouldn't be the right time for him in his career. I mean, look, a lot depends on tomorrow's match for Wales anyway in the World Cup, and whether he has a World Cup, the first since 1958 for Wales, I think it would be. That obviously would encourage him to keep his career going. But, if they don't win, then there are suggestions maybe he will hang up his boots. But I get the impression, I think we could be looking at a potentially a rather romantic fairy tale ending to his career if he does play on, of going back to Cardiff. I think that could genuinely happen in terms of, he's always told those around him that he'd love to just play one season before he retires at his hometown club, who he'd never played for, but his boyhood, hometown club, and play for them, which would be awesome to watch. Let's be honest. I know we'd all love to see Bale back and full stadiums, doing what he does, scoring goals, and I've seen people saying, "Oh, just buy him, just to be able to bring off the bench." Like, the money he would cost per week just to bring off the bench. No, it doesn't work like that. And still, even under Mourinho and Ryan Mason, he was so carefully having to manage his training time and his minutes on the pitch, and it just doesn't work like that under Conte. Conte won't have players like that. Every player has to give him their absolute maximum every match, 90 minutes plus, and their bodies have to be able to handle that. But yeah, I think with Cardiff, that would be a real fairy tale. That would be awesome to watch. It really would. Back to fitness and pre-season. Yeah, Rodon raving about it. And like I say, imagine all the fitness work he's been able to do with them around matches, which obviously you've got to have this natural tendency to give them time to recover and be refreshed to play games so they're not dead in games, essentially. But take away those matches, oh my God, this pre-season is going to be very unpleasant, but fantastic for them in the long run. And obviously there are matches to fit in. We've got the trip to Korea. They fly out on the 9th, but obviously the match is in the midweek of that. They'll be playing the K-League All-Stars team, and then they'll play Sevilla. Then they come back, and then they head off a week later to Glasgow to play Rangers. And then a week after that, it's Israel to play against Jose Mourinho's Roma, which is going to have plenty of narratives to it as well. It'll be interesting to see kind of how Conte takes to those tours, because certainly I remember when Chelsea did a pre-season tour to Singapore and China. I think it was what season was it? 17-18 season, I think. He was not happy with that tour. And he would moan, when they had a rough start to the Premier League, he was moaning about that tour and saying that it tired the players out. So he won't be shy in telling us that, I'm sure, not only on tour, but maybe as the season begins. But also on his part, he's got to adapt and develop because of that as a coach. He's got to plan around it. And look, there's going to be plenty of training time out there as well. There's not going to be too much travelling. You just do your initial flights, and then you've got a good 7 days straight in Korea, where he'll get them out in the heat of the Korean sun in the summer and work with them. And then coming back, obviously, you can fly up maybe even on the morning of the Rangers game, probably likely the night before, but still, you've got a full week of training there as well. And in Israel, I think they'll go out maybe the evening 2 nights before the match, and then they'll have a day where they can train in Israel, and then they'll have the match and they'll come straight back, and they'll have the full week before the first game of the season. So yeah, there's plenty of time there to train. And you've got to manage the players. Hopefully have a bigger squad. He wants a lot of these new players, or certainly a bulk of them, to come in before the tour. So he'll be able to manage game time as well. It shouldn't be as knackering as it has to be. And I think it's quite telling that, the first player that's come in the door, even Perisic, it's a player that knows exactly what Conte's pre-seasons are like. And he works hard. And you've got a 33-year-old doing what he does and training like he will be training. And that will just show everyone else, okay, we have no excuses. And, I said about this, I think, last week, Ryan Sessegnon coming out of England under-21 duty, because essentially he knew, it was a joint decision, I think, made by all parties, that he knew he had to rest up his hamstring muscles to make sure that they can handle the rigours of a Conte pre-season. Because it's kind of a bit of a make or break, I think, for Cess maybe this summer, in terms of his body, is what I mean. Because if his body can come through a Conte pre-season, make it to the season and be absolutely fine and raring and ready and strong for it, it could set him up for the rest of his career. And I think that's what you found with people with hamstring issues. And with Cess, I keep having to stress this, it's different muscles he keeps injuring within them. It's not even the same muscle that keeps going. So the people previously you've seen with hamstring issues, there are those who kind of end up being defined by them, and there are those who've moved past them and learnt to strengthen them in a certain way, or whatever it is, but they've overcome them. And hopefully Cess will be in the latter camp. But yeah, we shall see. We shall see. It's going to be a really interesting pre-season. I'm looking forward to it. Like I say, going to Korea, hopefully. It's all booked up, so I'll be out there, barring any disasters. I know this is Tottenham, so disasters, or me. Hopefully not for me. I think I'm going to Rangers as well. Give me a good chance to go up and see my family, because half of my family are all from Glasgow. They're all up that way, hence Alistair, the name, and spelt like it is. And Israel, I'm not sure yet exactly how that's going to work. There's some tough entry requirements for there, which a little bit like when you read them. So I'll be intrigued to see how many people actually go for that. But we'll see on that one. So yeah, international duty. Let's have a little chat about some of the lovely highlights. There's been some good ones for Spurs players. Dejan Kulusevski, beautiful goal. And yes, I have seen the footage of someone shouting something about Spurs and I'm going, oh no, when he scores. And it is quite funny. It is that classic moment where we've all done it as fans and journalists of saying something that looks very daft seconds later. It was a lovely goal from Kulusevski, easily beating his man and rocketing it past the keeper. Steven Bergwijn, we spoke about earlier, another goal for the Netherlands. I think that's 4 in 4, maybe? It's very good, whatever it is, his stats. And I think that was from range. I haven't seen it yet, but I've seen it described as from range. I've seen the Kulusevski one. I think Bergwijn again came out with some quotes afterwards that, he gets his confidence coming and playing with the Netherlands because obviously he's not playing much for Tottenham, which is absolutely true. There's no denying it, is there? It's. I do find the situation a really frustrating one because I think he can be a top player. And I just think, and Conte likes him, but if every week you're going to bring on Lucas ahead of him, how's the player ever going to want to really stick around? And I do think he's at the stage now where he needs to move on for his own career, which is really sad to see. Apparently Højbjerg was superb against France. I've heard a few people say that. Obviously they won, I think it was 2-1. Sonny took on Neymar. They played against each other. That was cool. I think I saw some quotes. I think it might have been Emerson saying that Sonny was asking whether Neymar was aware of him or something. And he was like, yes, of course he's aware of you. I'm not sure. I can't completely guarantee they were 100% legitimate or not, but I saw those. It sounds like the kind of funny, modest thing that Sonny would say. So yeah, they came up against each other. I saw a big hug between them after the game, and Neymar stuck all stuff on his social media about Sonny. Sonny's a superstar. He is. I just love the fact that he doesn't even realise he is. I think maybe he just feels that he is maybe in Korea, perhaps, and because obviously he gets to see that firsthand. But he's a superstar across the world. Of course he is. Brian Hill scored a couple of goals for the Spain under-21s. They beat Northern Ireland quite comfortably. I think was it 6-0, I think. Obviously, we have Harry Kane tonight in Hungary starting his quest to break Wayne Rooney's record. Was he 4 off of it? A couple of interesting Kane quotes that I can read for you. First one, which is a nice sounding one about where his head's at this summer. So, whenever you finish strongly with your club, there's always a freer mind going into the international stage. Obviously, last summer we had a major European competition, a large tournament. So, of course, you have different feelings towards that than maybe you would towards the Nation League games. It was a fantastic summer last year in terms of the tournament. It ended, obviously, very disappointingly. But going into these games, I feel confident. I feel free. We had a good finish as a team towards the end of the season. I had a good season personally, which is always great. So I'm looking forward to carrying that on into these games. Then, as I touched on earlier, getting a nice break over the summer. So that's a different Harry Kane this summer. That is a Harry Kane saying, yeah, I've enjoyed it at Spurs. It's been good, isn't it? And looking forward to what it is. And I think he also spoke about having a 3-week rest, which is roughly what it is. I think the players, from what I understand, I think international players are going to come back in time for July the 9th to head off on that flight to Korea. It may even be that some come back on that day. And I think the non-internationals will return at the start of that week. So yeah, roughly about 3 weeks for all the international players will get to have a rest up. I mean, the thing is as well, is this pre-season is actually going to be a week shorter because the season starts a week earlier. So they are having to fit a lot into a concentrated amount of time. So they're all going to have to keep their fitness levels pretty high, otherwise they're going to struggle under Conte. But yeah, with Harry Kane, that's kind of feeds in nicely to the stuff I was saying before, that he's really happy with what's happening at Spurs. And if they continue to show the level of ambition they look like they're showing, then he will be open to signing a new contract or talking about a new contract when he comes back in pre-season. So all eyes on that. And he also was asked about Eric Dyer missing out, which was his answer was really good on that. I'm really close with Eric. He's a fantastic player. He's had a really good season, probably the best season he has had in terms of being consistent over a long period of time, staying fit and healthy. I think he really fitted into Antonio's system really well and put in some great performances. He was a big reason we got Champions League football, but obviously the squad selection is always down to the manager and it's his decision. He'll always try to make the best decision for the team and the squad. I'm sure Eric is knocking on the door, close to getting that call up again. All he has to do is keep working hard, keep doing what he's doing. He has a chance now to recover and rest over the summer and hopefully come back firing at the start of next season. There's another camp in September and then the World Cup. So I'm sure he'll have one eye on that to try to impress the manager and get his way in. That's it, isn't it? Dyer, big season, a big summer for him, big season ahead. Conte really likes him. Just got to build on what he's doing. Probably the most consistent season of his career, I'd say. Yeah, probably. But maybe he had some good early ones under Poch, so maybe that's not fair. Maybe in central defence, his best, most consistent season. So, yeah, I thought that was good stuff from Kane on him. What else we got? Home kit launch. That's coming soon. Keep an eye out for that very soon, I think. Thank you to everyone underneath in the comments on the last video that told me Dane Scarlett was number 44. It was exactly like I said. I always say that. People get to a certain point in the video, and it's lovely. I really like it. They get to a certain point in the video, and they feel, I have to comment now. And they'll comment if they're on their phone or whatever, or however they're watching it. They'll comment at the same time as they're watching it. And I said it, and I was right. A million people, not a million, if I had a million comments under my videos, they'd be getting very high views. But loads of people. Dane Scarlett's number 44. Dane Scarlett is 44. 44 you'll find is Dane Scarlett. And it was really funny. I do like all of that. It's good. It shows that you're taking part and you're watching it and you're interacting. I love all of that. So Dane Scarlett is number 44. So, sorry, if you're not aware of why I'm saying that, it's because Ivan Perisic is waiting for a shirt number to become available. He's hoping either 14 or I probably think 44 to come up. Two numbers he's had in the past. He likes his number 4. He actually plays with 4 as Croatia, but can't see Romero giving that one up anytime soon. Obviously 14 is Joe Rodon, who is likely to move on. Hopefully, I don't know what I was doing air quotes, hopefully. I was going to say it again. On loan is what I want him to do because I think it's logically makes more sense. Be worth a load more next summer. And I think even if they don't want to sell him, could come back and challenge if he has a really big season. Let's say for someone like Forest, where Steve Cooper knows him very well. But yeah, so his 14 may be available if he chooses to, maybe it's a bit of a bargaining chip as well in what he's doing, and maybe a new contract if he were to go out on loan. And 44, I'm sure Dane Scarlett would want to move up the numbers. So as a backup, I'm sure that one would be put away for him. What else we got coming up? I'm going to probably do a Q&A next video. So if you want to get your comments into underneath with various questions you want to ask, hopefully it'll be the next video, if not the next one after. But whatever, I will take the questions from that. We'll do a big old Q&A on that as well. Oh, the other thing as well, Spurs obviously announced some departures this week. I think it was 13 in all from the one from the first team, a fair few from the development squad, and also from the academy. And yeah, I must admit, some of those are not a surprise. Some of them were perhaps not a surprise, but maybe slightly sad. Obviously, we know Pierluigi Gallini is going back. We kind of knew that was going to happen anyway with Forster coming in. Gallini goes back. I think had he the option to make his deal permanent would have been 20 appearances, I think it was, for Spurs. He only made 10 in all. And I think fee-wise, I think it would have been about 12.5 million, something like that, to make it permanent. But they didn't. So he's gone back. He hasn't done I don't think, as far as I'm aware, he hasn't done like a goodbye message type thing yet. He is on international duty, so he's otherwise tied up. But yeah, obviously, good character behind the scenes, as I said a few times. Very, very popular, but that's his time with Tottenham done, and he is back. In terms of the ones who've left from the development squad, Janeel Bennett, which I must admit, I had high hopes for Janeel. He's got a lot of talent, very talented kind of winger / support striker type player. He hasn't had the best of luck with injuries. He had some annoying ones at big times. He did make his Spurs debut. He's played about 10 minutes or so, maybe slightly more, in the, I think it was Pesos. Was it Pesos away? Certainly in the Conference League qualifiers he played. So that was great. That's a big thing for him. I think, if I remember correctly, he scored a beauty when we were at the test event, the under-18s match at the Spurs Stadium a couple of years back as well. And he has got lots of quality. And hopefully for him now, he goes off somewhere and becomes, at least a Football League professional player. Had his loan last season, which he did okay, came back halfway through. with an injury. I think it was an ankle injury in that one. Again, like I say, just injuries, just not really helping him out too much. But yeah, sad to see him go, but hopefully it's the start of something for him. Do you know what? A lot of goalkeepers have departed. Kasper Kolowitz, who you will have heard me speaking about in the loan roundups, Timothy Latutala, which was perhaps a surprising one because he's a France under-19 player. Really kind of quite talented young man. Josh Oluwayemi as well, another talented one. Isaac Solberg, the young Scandinavian keeper as well. So in all, what's that? Galini, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 goalkeepers there heading out the door, which suggests that they're going to have a little bit of an influx, maybe in terms of youth keepers. Obviously, some of the under-18s ones will step up as well. But yeah, that's a big old kind of getting rid of. And also Toby Omoli, he was very regularly involved in the first team kind of training sessions last year, centre-back. He was on the bench for one of the Premier League games. Was it maybe Villa? There was definitely a Premier League game where he was on the bench, and also I think a couple of times in the various cup competitions, maybe Europe. So yeah, he's heading off. Dermy Lusala as well. Yeah, another one who there was quite a lot of buzz around, and unfortunately just hasn't quite worked out for him at Spurs. And in the under-18s, you've got Jez Davies, Jordan Hackett, Kalon Hazeman, Ronaldo Torres and Oliver Turner. So sad, obviously, to see them all go. Hopefully, all of them go on to good things elsewhere. But yeah, it's a big old exodus. It's unfortunately the way it always is when they do the release things. We haven't had the retained list yet because sometimes that shows players who they've offered a contract to stay that haven't decided yet. So that's why they're not technically on the release list yet. And also, it's an opportunity to see some of the very interesting middle names that the players have got. I think I always remember, I can't remember what they are, but Toby Alderweireld and Vincent Janssen, I remember having really fascinating names. Maybe Albertine, was that Toby's? I can't remember, but there were some really good ones, and you'll get to see those. So yeah, I think that's pretty much tying up everything. Obviously, internationals still to come, and I think we'll have more Bastoni news. Bastoni news! Sorry, the reason I do that is because I got shouted that once. I think it was a pre-season friendly last year. It wasn't Bastoni, it was Romero news, and it just stuck with me. And the other journalists were absolutely taking the mickey out of me, as was members of the Spurs staff. So it just makes me chuckle whenever I say that. Yeah, I think that's it. I think that's pretty much all we can cover right now. Keep an eye on those various names I've said. There'll be more to come out. Some little talk about a potential young goalkeeper as well, but I'm not going to go into that right now because I think there's more kind of digging needs to be done on that, and that may be another reason for the exodus of keepers. But yeah, loads to come. The transfer window hasn't even opened yet. This is the thing, we're all so impatient now. We're all transfers, I want them right now. And it's a bit like, transfer window, I think it opens, is it officially June the 10th? I think it opens. It's like, Spurs have already signed someone. It's like, I'm greedy, I want more. And they will come. They will come. There's so much more to come. And like I said, there will be names that I have not mentioned that will suddenly appear and that will be very exciting. There will be names that are complete rubbish that will come out and aren't so exciting. But yeah, we'll work our way through them. Like I say, probably going to try and do at least 2 videos a week during the transfer window. It may work out as certain weeks I can't. I do have a couple of little spells away planned, which I know people get very excited about. People get quite aggressive with that on social media. I've had messages, gold, go away, stuff will happen, and stuff like that. It's a bit like, whoa, all right, calm yourselves. And yes, I do get that a lot. And yes, it doesn't... I've maybe heard it too many times now, perhaps. But I appreciate why people say it. But yeah, so there will be certain weeks I won't be able to do it twice. And there will be certain weeks when there won't be much happening. It's a long summer. So it won't be 2 every week, but I'll certainly try to aim for that. And like I say, hopefully next one will be a Q&A. If you get your comments and questions underneath, and I will do more Q&As as well over the summer as well, because it's a nice way, I guess, for you not only to kind of ask me about Spurs stuff, but I don't know, you can ask about me, you can ask me about journalism and what it's like doing this job, which is a very strange but interesting job at times. And yeah, anything else? I love my movies. I love my TV. Absolutely been loving Stranger Things, loving the new series of that. It was absolutely superb. Cannot wait to see what the next couple of episodes bring when they release those in July. Obi-Wan Kenobi has been superb. Really enjoyed that third episode. Was like goosebump moments. Top Gun Maverick went to see, which was incredible as well. I had a really good week of viewing stuff as well. Top Gun Maverick was absolutely blew my expectations out of the water. It's brilliant, honestly. It's so well crafted and shot. I still don't understand how they did some of the flying scene stuff. It's just incredible. But yeah, enough about TV and movies. You can shove those into your Q&As if you want to. Although that older chap who sent me an email, very unhappy that I was talking about stuff non-Spurs. Sorry to you, that will happen. Yeah, there you go. Right, I'm going to head off because beautifully the sun has come out, which means the ice cream van is going to probably come very soon, and you don't have to hear that. It sounds like something from It. It does. The music is really creepy. Actually, Stranger Things is probably a good nod to what its music. It clearly needs a new. I don't know if they make new ice cream music systems or not, but he needs a new one because it is definitely a creepy thing. Sounds a bit more like Dexter music. But anyway, time to head off to go and enjoy that sunshine. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Jubilee weekend for those here in the UK, and just your normal weekend for those elsewhere. And yeah, hopefully we'll have some exciting stuff to talk about very soon. And yeah, as always, stay safe, stay healthy, look after yourselves, and I shall catch you later. Goodbye.